Mechanic helps pregnant young woman abandoned on the road, without knowing she was a millionaire's daughter. Jack Miller didn't expect to find anyone that Thursday afternoon. He was returning from a delivery when he saw the car stopped on the shoulder, with the hood up and smoke coming from the engine. His first reaction was just to slow down and see if there was anyone around who needed help. That's when he noticed the young woman sitting by the side of the road, her hands wrapped around her round belly. Her eyes were swollen, as if she had been crying for hours, and when he stopped the pickup truck a few meters ahead, she raised her face with a mixed expression of relief and fear. "Miss, are you okay?" Jack asked, getting out of the vehicle and grabbing his toolbox from the back seat. She hesitated before answering, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "The car stopped working. I don't know what happened." Her voice came out weak, almost a whisper. Jack approached slowly, not wanting to scare her even more. She was clearly shaken, and he noticed that her clothes, though simple, were of good quality. The light green dress she was wearing was dirty with road dust, and her dark hair was tied in a messy ponytail. "Let me take a look at the engine. Have you been here long?" "A few hours, I think." She looked at the sky beginning to take on the orange hues of dusk. "I lost track of time." Jack opened the hood further and began examining the engine. Right away he noticed something strange. That car was imported, a new model, probably worth more than everything he had in his life, but the engine was in a state that didn't make sense for a vehicle of that caliber. "When was the last time you put fuel in?" he asked, still analyzing. "Last night. I filled the tank before—" She stopped mid-sentence, biting her lower lip. Jack didn't press. He grabbed the water bottle he always carried in the pickup truck and offered it to her. "Here, you need to hydrate, especially in your condition." She accepted the water with slightly trembling hands and took a few quick sips, as if she were very thirsty but afraid to show it. "Thank you." She paused, holding the bottle between her hands. "I don't have a way to pay you right now." "Easy, don't worry about that now." Jack turned his attention back to the engine, running his fingers over the components. When he checked the fuel system, his expression changed. There was definitely something wrong there. The texture, the color, everything indicated contamination. "Miss, I need to ask you something. Did anyone else have access to your car yesterday?" She turned pale. "Why?" "Because there's sugar in the fuel tank." Jack closed the hood slowly, wiping his hands on an old rag he took from his pocket. "This doesn't happen by accident. Someone did it on purpose." The silence that followed was heavy. Jack saw her eyes fill with tears again, but this time she fought to hold them back. She brought her hand to the necklace she was wearing, a delicate pendant that sparkled even in the dim evening light. "I can't go back." The words came out of her like a painful confession. "I can't." Jack realized there was much more to this situation than he had imagined. The pregnant young woman, alone on a deserted road, with a sabotaged car, no apparent documents, no cell phone in sight. "Look, I don't know what's going on in your life." He spoke calmly, keeping a respectful distance. "But it's getting dark. You're pregnant and you need help. My auto shop is about 15 kilometers from here. I can take you there. You rest a bit, eat something, and we'll figure out what to do with the car." "You're not going to call anyone?" The question was filled with fear. "I won't call anyone you don't want me to call." Jack put away his tools and reached out a hand to help her up. "But you can't stay here. It's not safe." She looked at the outstretched hand, then at his face as if weighing whether she could trust him. Finally, she accepted the help and stood up with difficulty, one hand supporting her belly. "I'm Jack. Jack Miller. I have a small auto shop in Riverdale. It's a small town a few miles from here. Emily." She answered only with her name, no last name, no further details. Jack didn't press. He helped her into the pickup truck, making sure she was comfortable. Before leaving, he looked at the abandoned car, memorizing the license plate and model. Something about the whole story didn't add up, but he had learned long ago that sometimes people need help first, and explanations later. As they drove down the empty road, the silence inside the truck was broken only by the sound of the engine and the occasional grinding of the gears. Emily kept her eyes fixed on the window, watching the rural landscape go by. Fields of sugarcane stretched out on both sides, with a few scattered houses dotting the horizon. "How far along are you?" Jack asked, trying to start a conversation to make her feel more at ease. 7 months. The answer came quickly, automatic. "More or less." "Are you getting medical checkups?" She took longer to answer this time. "I was, but it's been a few weeks since I've seen a doctor." Jack nodded without judgment. He knew the feeling well himself, when things spiraled out of control, when the world seemed to be falling apart and you had to make tough decisions. It had been like that when his wife died 2 years ago, in a car accident he preferred not to remember. Since then, he had thrown himself into work, into the shop they had built together, trying to find some purpose in the emptiness she left behind. "The shop isn't much." He kept talking, filling the silence. "But there's a small room in the back where I live. There's a sofa that turns into a bed. You can sleep there tonight. I'll take the floor, it's no problem. You don't know me." Emily turned to face him for the first time since they got into the truck. "Why are you doing this?" Jack thought about the question, keeping his eyes on the road. "My mother always said you never know when you're entertaining an angel in disguise." He gave a sad smile. "And also because, if it were my pregnant daughter, alone on a road, I'd want someone to help her." Emily looked back out the window, but Jack noticed she relaxed her shoulders a little. It was a start. When they reached Riverdale, the sun had completely set. The town was exactly as Jack had described, small with a main street where the few shops were, a central square with an old church, and dirt roads leading to the residents' houses. Jack's shop was on a corner of the main street, a low building with a simple facade that read, "Miller's Auto Shop, General Repairs." Jack parked the truck next to the shop and helped Emily down. She looked around with curiosity mixed with apprehension, as if assessing every detail of the place. "You must be hungry," Jack said as he opened the side gate that led to the back of the shop. "I'm not much of a cook, but there's always something to make here." The back space was simple but clean. There was a small kitchen with an old stove and refrigerator, a round table with 2 chairs, the sofa he had mentioned, and a door leading to a tiny bathroom. The walls were decorated with old photos, most of them showing a younger Jack next to a pretty woman with a wide smile. Emily noticed the photos but didn't comment. Instead, she sat down heavily on the sofa, looking exhausted. "You can take a shower if you want." Jack opened the refrigerator, checking what was available. "I have some clean clothes that might fit you. They were from my wife. She wasn't as tall as you, but they should be fine for sleeping. She doesn't live here anymore." The question came out without thinking, and Emily immediately seemed to regret it. "She passed away 2 years ago," Jack replied simply, taking eggs and cheese from the fridge. "Car accident." "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked." "No, it's fine." He began cracking eggs into a bowl. "It's good to talk about her sometimes." "Sarah, that was her name. We had this auto shop together. She handled the administrative side, I did the repairs. We were a good team." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. While Jack prepared a simple omelette, Emily got up and slowly walked over to one of the photos on the wall. It was a picture of Jack and Sarah on the day the auto shop opened, both smiling broadly, covered in grease but beaming with happiness. "You looked very happy," she said softly. "We were." Jack turned on the stove. "We didn't have children, but we had plans. We always planned to have a big family, but it never happened, and then—" He let the sentence hang in the air. Emily returned to the couch, and Jack continued cooking in silence. When the food was ready, he served 2 plates, and they sat at the table. She ate slowly at first, but soon hunger took over and she devoured everything. "Sorry," she said, a bit embarrassed. "I haven't eaten properly in days." "No need to apologize." Jack served her more omelette. "You're eating for 2. After dinner, Jack found some of Sarah's clean clothes and handed them to Emily. She went to take a shower while he prepared the couch with clean sheets and a blanket. When she came out of the bathroom with wet hair and wearing a simple nightgown, that was a bit tight because of her belly. She looked younger and more vulnerable than before. "Thank you," she said, and this time there was genuine emotion in her voice. "I don't know why you're doing all this, but thank you. Get some rest." Jack turned off the main light, leaving only a lamp on. "If you need anything during the night, just call me. I'll be right here on the floor." But when Emily lay down on the couch, she let out a deep sigh that sounded almost like a suppressed sob. Jack, who was preparing his own sleeping spot with some cushions and a thin blanket, stopped and looked at her. "Do you want to talk?" he asked gently. There was a long silence. Then, in the partial darkness of the room, Emily began to speak. "I grew up having everything. Literally everything." The words came out slowly, as if she were choosing each one carefully. Big house, expensive clothes, private schools, trips, everything you can imagine. But you know what the irony is? I never had the one thing that really mattered. Jack waited, without rushing. "My father, he built an empire from nothing. Started poor, worked hard, and became one of the richest people in the region. But in the process, he forgot what it means to be human." She paused, adjusting herself on the couch. "For him, everything is business. Everything is an investment. Even his children." "How many siblings do you have?" "Two. An older brother and a younger sister." Emily ran her hand over her belly. "My brother does exactly what my father wants, works in the company, marries who my father approves of, lives the life that was planned for him. My sister is still trying to figure out if she'll follow the same path or if she'll have the courage to be different. And you chose to be different." "I tried." Her voice grew tighter. "I met someone. I thought it was real love. He treated me differently from everyone else, you know. He wasn't impressed by money or the family name, or at least that's what I thought." Jack began to understand where the story was heading. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared, but also happy. I know it sounds strange." She let out a bitter laugh. "But I thought I'd finally have a real family, a family where love mattered more than money." "What happened?" "I told him first. He was shocked, obviously, but said we'd figure it out, that he'd support me." Emily took a deep breath. "Then I told my father. And it was horrible. He was furious. Said I was throwing my life away, that I was shaming the family. And then he did what he always does when he wants to control a situation." "What did he do?" "He investigated my boyfriend, found out he had debts, lots of debts. And then he offered him money to leave." Emily's voice broke. "A lot of money. Enough for him to disappear from my life and never come back." "And he accepted. Worse. He negotiated, asked for more." Tears began to stream down her face. "And my father paid happily just to prove his point, that everyone has a price, that love doesn't exist, only transactions." Jack felt anger growing inside him, but kept his voice calm. "And what did your father want you to do?" "Give the baby up for adoption as soon as it was born. He'd even chosen the couple. Rich, influential people who would raise my child away from me." Emily wiped her face with the back of her hand. "He said it was best for everyone, that I was young, that I could start over, return to the company, marry someone suitable in the future. But you didn't want to." "How could I?" She placed both hands protectively over her belly. "It's my child, my baby. It doesn't matter how it was conceived or under what circumstances. I already love this child more than I've loved anything in my life. That's why you ran away. I tried to argue first, for weeks. But my father is relentless. He cut off my access to bank accounts, took my phone, practically locked me in the house, said it was for my own good." She let out a humorless laugh. "Until I found an opportunity. I stole the spare car keys, took some money I had hidden, and ran away in the middle of the night. And someone sabotaged the car." Emily was silent for a moment. "My brother," she finally admitted. "He saw me taking the keys. I begged him not to tell our father, and he said he wouldn't. But he couldn't just let me leave either, so she swallowed hard. "He sabotaged the car, said it was for my own good, that I'd be back in a few hours when I realized I had nowhere to go. But you didn't come back? No. I drove as far as I could until the car stopped working, and then I sat there on the road not knowing what to do. She looked at Jack through the dim light. Until you showed up? Jack processed all the information. It was a sad story, but not uncommon. Rich, complicated families, controlling parents, children trying to find their own way. But there was something about this particular situation that touched him deeply. Does your father know where you are? No. At least I don't think so. I only told my brother I was going south, but I came inland instead. She hesitated. But he has resources. He'll look for me. Eventually. And when he finds you? I don't know. Her voice was small, frightened. But I won't give up my baby, I won't. Jack felt a mixture of admiration and concern. This girl had courage, that was undeniable. But courage alone didn't pay bills or guarantee a child's safety. You can stay here as long as you need, he finally said. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do with the car, how to help you. But for now you're safe. I guarantee that. Emily didn't respond, but Jack heard her soft sob as she tried to muffle the sound. He stayed quiet, giving her space to cry, to release all the tension and fear she had kept inside. Eventually, her breathing calmed and became regular. She had fallen asleep. Jack stayed awake longer, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything Emily had told him. He knew he was getting into a complicated situation. Helping the runaway daughter of a rich and powerful man could bring trouble. But when he thought about the alternative, leaving her alone on that road, pregnant and desperate, he knew he had made the right choice. Before sleeping, Jack said a silent prayer. He asked Sarah, wherever she was, to guide him, to help him do the right thing, and he asked her to protect that young woman and the baby she was carrying. The next morning, Jack woke up early as usual. The sun had barely risen when he was already up, making coffee. The strong smell woke Emily, who sat up on the sofa with a confused expression for a moment, before remembering where she was. Good morning, Jack smiled, pouring 2 cups. Coffee? Please. She accepted the cup gratefully, taking a sip and making a face. It's strong. Sorry, I always make it like that. I can make it weaker if you want. No, it's fine. She took another sip. I just wasn't expecting it. Jack prepared a simple breakfast with bread, butter, and fruit he had. While they ate, he explained his routine. I usually open the auto shop at 8. I have a few regular customers who bring their cars in for maintenance. Nothing too elaborate, mostly oil changes, brake issues, that sort of thing. He spread butter on his bread. You don't have to come out if you don't want to. You can stay here in the back, rest. Actually, Emily hesitated. I'd like to help. With something. I don't want to just receive without giving anything in return. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, she gently interrupted. But I want to. Please. Jack thought for a moment. All right. The administrative part of the shop has been a mess since since she's no longer here, he admitted. If you know how to work with computers, organize paperwork, that sort of thing, it would be a big help. I can do that, Emily confirmed, and for the first time since they had met, she smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. After breakfast, Jack showed her the small office located in a corner of the auto shop. There was a desk with an old computer, stacks of disorganized papers, invoices mixed with receipts, and a thin layer of dust over everything. Sarah kept everything organized, Jack said with regret. After she left, I kind of gave up on that part. I just do the basics to keep things running. Emily looked around, assessing the work she had ahead. This will keep me busy for a while. Are you sure you're okay doing this? Because of the pregnancy? I'm pregnant, not an invalid, she replied with a touch of humor. Besides, sitting and organizing papers is much calmer than what I used to do. What did you used to do? Emily became serious again. I worked at my father's company. He always wanted all his children to work there, to learn the business. I was in the finance department. She ran her hand over the papers on the desk. So, believe me, I know how to handle administrative mess. Throughout the morning, while Jack attended to his customers, Emily began working in the office. She organized the papers by category, created folders on the computer, and started entering information that was only on paper into the digital system. The first customer of the day was Mr. Frank, a man in his 60s who brought his old pickup truck in for regular maintenance. He glanced curiously toward the office where Emily was working. "Hired someone, Jack?" he asked casually. "She's temporary help," Jack replied, choosing his words carefully. "Someone giving me a hand with the paperwork." Mr. Frank nodded, but Jack noticed the man's curious look. In a small town like Riverdale, any news spread fast. During lunch, Jack closed the shop for an hour and prepared food for both of them. Emily had made impressive progress organizing the office. "You have a system here that doesn't make much sense," she commented while they ate the instant noodles Jack had made. "Half your customers you don't charge properly, and the other half you let pay when they can." Jack shrugged. "It's a small town. People here don't have much money. I charge what I can when I can." "You're too nice," Emily said, but it wasn't a criticism. There was admiration in her voice. "My father would say you're running the business poorly." "Your father is probably right from a business standpoint," Jack admitted, "but I sleep well at night, and the shop pays the bills more or less. It's enough for me." Emily fell quiet, thoughtful. Must be nice, living like that, without the constant pressure of profits and growth. "It has its pros and cons," Jack said, taking the plates to the sink. "But yes, I like the life I have here." In the afternoon, more customers showed up. Mrs. Margaret brought her old car that was making strange noises. Mark, the grocery store owner, needed a tire change. And so the day went by, with Jack fixing cars and Emily working quietly in the office. When the afternoon was well advanced, a car Jack had never seen before stopped in front of the shop. It was a shiny black sedan, completely out of place compared to the vehicles usually seen around Riverdale. An elegant man, wearing a dark suit and sunglasses, got out of the car. Jack wiped his hands on a rag and approached. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" The man slowly removed his sunglasses, his eyes scanning every detail of the shop. "Good afternoon. I'm looking for information about a car." He pulled a paper from his pocket and showed it. It was a photo of Emily's car. "Has a vehicle of this model passed through here recently? Maybe yesterday?" Jack felt his heart race but kept his expression neutral. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Emily peeking through the office window, her eyes widening in fear when she saw the man. "No, sir," Jack lied without hesitation. "Haven't seen any car like that around here. That's an expensive model, not common in this area." The man studied Jack's face for a long moment, as if trying to detect lies. "Are you sure? It's very important that I find this vehicle. There's a generous reward for any information." "How generous?" Jack asked, trying to sound interested to avoid raising suspicion. $5,000, the man replied without blinking. "Just for information leading to the vehicle." It was a significant amount, especially for someone like Jack. But he just nodded. "That's a good amount. If I see anything, how do I contact you?" The man handed over a business card. It was simple, just with a name, Richard Coleman, and a phone number. "Any time," Richard said, putting his sunglasses back on. "And just to be clear, the person driving that car, they're not in danger with us. We just want to make sure they're safe and sound." "Understood," Jack said, putting the card in his pocket. "I'll keep an eye out." Richard nodded and returned to his car. Before going in, he took one last look around the auto shop, his eyes briefly lingering on the office window where Emily had quickly hidden. Then he got into the car and drove off, kicking up a cloud of dust. Jack waited until the car had completely disappeared before heading back inside. He found Emily in the office, pale and trembling. "He found me," she whispered. "My father found me." "Calm down, that man didn't see you." "And I didn't say anything." Jack knelt beside the chair where she was sitting. "But are you sure it was your father who sent him? Who else could it be?" Emily hugged her stomach. "Emily, 5,000 reais is exactly the kind of amount my father would offer. Enough to tempt most people, but not so much that it seems suspicious." Jack thought of the card in his pocket. Richard Coleman. The name meant nothing to him, but the way the man had behaved, the calculated way he spoke. Everything indicated that he was a professional at finding people. "We have to move the car from where it is," Emily said suddenly. "If they search the road—" "I've already thought of that." Jack stood up. "I'll tow it tonight. I have a shed on my brother-in-law's property about 10 kilometers from here. I can hide it there." "You don't have to do this." Emily looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "You don't owe me anything. 5,000 rees is a lot of money." "I'm not doing it for money," Jack said firmly. "I'm doing it because it's the right thing. You're running from an abusive situation, trying to protect your child. I won't betray you for any amount of money." That night, after closing the shop, Jack took his tow truck and went back to the spot where he had found Emily. The car was still there, exactly where it had been left. He worked quickly, towing the vehicle and taking it to his brother-in-law's shed, which fortunately was empty at that time. When he returned to the auto shop, it was past midnight. Emily was awake, waiting for him. "Did you manage it?" she asked anxiously. "It's hidden. No one will find it there." Jack put the tow truck keys on the table. "But Emily, we need to talk about what we're going to do now." They sat at the kitchen table, and Jack poured tea for both of them. "That man Richard, he won't give up easily," Jack began. "And if your father is as powerful as you say, he has the resources to keep looking." "I know." Emily held the cup with both hands, seeking warmth. "I was thinking, maybe I should move on, go to another town. The farther, the better." "And do what there? You have no papers, no money, you're pregnant," Jack pointed out. "I'm not saying this to be cruel, but to be realistic." "Then what do you suggest?" Jack took a deep breath before answering. "Stay here, for now." He saw she was about to protest and raised his hand. "Hear me out. Riverdale is small, yes, but that's exactly why it might work. Everyone knows everyone. If we try to integrate you into the community, introduce you as, I don't know, a distant cousin or something, people will naturally protect you." "Why would they do that?" "Because that's how it works in small towns. We look out for each other." Jack smiled slightly. "And besides, you're helping out at the shop. People will see you're not a freeloader, that you're working, contributing." Emily considered the proposal. "What if my father sends more people? If he offers more money?" "Most people here don't need money so badly that they'd betray the community's trust," Jack explained. "Of course, there are always exceptions, but I know the people here. They'll help you." She looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing all this, really? What's your reason?" Jack thought carefully before answering. "When Sarah passed away, I was devastated. She was everything to me." He looked at the picture on the wall. "But what really helped me keep going were the people in this town. They supported me, brought food, offered help. Mrs. Margaret cleaned the auto shop when I couldn't get out of bed. Mr. Frank took care of my pickup truck without charging. Mark from the grocery store gave me credit even when I couldn't pay right away." He turned his gaze back to Emily. "This community saved me when I needed it most. Now you need help, and I can give that. It's no more complicated than that." Emily wiped the tears streaming down her face, dreaming. "Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you for all this." "You don't need to repay me," Jack finished his tea. "You just need to stay safe and take good care of that baby." In the following days, Jack began introducing Emily to the local residents. He kept the story simple. She was a distant cousin going through hard times and needed a place to stay for a while. The people of Riverdale, accustomed to the natural solidarity of small towns, accepted the explanation without many questions. Mrs. Margaret was one of the first to take a liking to Emily. The woman in her mid-60s, a widow like Jack, began visiting her regularly, bringing maternity clothes her own daughter had used years ago. "Dear, you need to take better care of yourself," Mrs. Margaret said during one of these visits, looking critically at Emily. "When was the last time you saw a doctor?" "A few weeks ago," Emily admitted. "That won't do. Come on, let's go to the community clinic tomorrow. Doctor, Thompson sees pregnant women there twice a week." She wouldn't take no for an answer. The next day, Mrs. Margaret took Emily to the small community clinic in Riverdale. Dr. Thompson, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a gentle manner, examined Emily thoroughly. "Everything seems to be fine with the baby," he said after the examination. "But you're a bit underweight for this stage of pregnancy. Are you eating properly? I am now, Emily replied. But before, it was complicated. The doctor didn't press for details. Instead, he gave her a list of vitamins and supplements she should take and provided instructions on diet and light exercise. During the exam, the nurse, a young woman named Jennifer, noticed the necklace Emily always wore. "What a beautiful necklace," she commented casually. "It's one of a kind, isn't it?" Emily automatically brought her hand to the necklace, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Jennifer. "It was my grandmother's," she lied quickly. Jennifer nodded, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she knew there was more to the story. However, she didn't say anything, just continued with her work. When they were leaving the clinic, Mrs. Margaret commented, "Jennifer is a good girl. She came from a bigger city, has been working here for about 2 years. Sometimes she still doesn't understand how things work in small towns, but she's learning." Emily didn't respond, but she kept that comment in her head. There was something in Jennifer's look that made her uncomfortable, as if the nurse had recognized her from somewhere. Meanwhile, at the auto shop, Jack continued his work as usual, but remained alert. Richard Coleman hadn't shown up again, but Jack knew that didn't mean he had given up. Men like that didn't give up easily. One afternoon, while working on an oil change, Mr. Frank approached him with a worried expression. "Jack, can I talk to you for a minute?" They moved to a more private corner of the auto shop. "What is it, Mr. Frank?" "It's about that young woman, your cousin." The man hesitated. "Yesterday I was in the neighboring town doing some shopping and I saw a poster. It had her picture on it." Jack felt his stomach turn. What did the poster say? That she's missing. That the family is worried and is offering a reward for information. Frank lowered his voice. "Jack, I'm not going to tell anyone. You helped me when I needed it, and I won't betray you. But you need to know that this is spreading." "How much is the reward now?" Jack asked, even though he already knew it wouldn't be good. $10,000. Frank put his hand on Jack's shoulder. "That's a lot of money, son. And you know there are people in town who need that amount." Jack nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. "What should I do?" "I don't know, but whatever it is, do it quickly." Frank looked around to make sure no one was listening. "There are rumors that there's a private detective asking questions in the surrounding towns. It's only a matter of time before he gets here." That night, Jack told everything to Emily. She turned pale but didn't seem surprised. "I knew this would happen," she said calmly, but her voice trembled. "My father doesn't stop until he gets what he wants." "Maybe it's time for you to talk to him," Jack suggested. "Not go back, but at least have a conversation. Set boundaries." "You don't understand." Emily shook her head. "For my father, there's no middle ground. It's his way or it's wrong. If I call him, he'll trace the call. If I send a messenger, he'll follow the person back here. He's relentless." "But it can't go on like this forever," Jack argued. "You're having this baby in a few months. You need documents. You need proper medical support. You need—" "I know," Emily burst out, then took a deep breath, calming herself. "Sorry, I know you're right. I just don't know what to do." They fell silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. That's when they heard knocks on the back door of the auto shop. Jack and Emily exchanged alarmed looks. It was late, past 10 at night. No one usually showed up at that hour. "Stay here," Jack whispered, grabbing a wrench before approaching the door. "Who is it?" "It's me, Margaret." The familiar voice came from the other side. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." Jack opened the door and found Margaret with a serious expression on her face. She quickly entered, looking back as if checking if she had been followed. "What happened?" Emily asked, getting up from the couch. "Jennifer, the nurse from the clinic." Margaret spoke quickly. "She recognized you. Saw your photo in an old newspaper when she was still in the town you came from. She knows who you are." "And?" Jack asked, fearing the answer. "And she was at the grocery store this afternoon, talking about how she found an article about a business scandal involving your family." Margaret looked at Emily. "It didn't take long for people to start connecting the dots. And there's someone in town now offering a lot of money for information about you. Emily sat down heavily on the couch, putting her head in her hands. "It's over. He found me." "It's not over," Margaret said firmly. "But you need a plan. Quickly." Jack started pacing back and forth, thinking. "How much time do we have?" "Not much," Margaret replied. "The news will spread by tomorrow morning, and there's a well-dressed man, an outsider, asking questions. He's already talked to the gas station owner, the bakery owner. It won't be long before he knocks on your door. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing." "I need to leave," Emily said, standing up. "Tonight. Now. Before it's too late." "And go where?" Jack asked. "No car, no money, no documents. You won't get far. So what do you suggest? That I stay here and wait for my father to drag me back?" "I suggest you trust me." A new voice entered the conversation. Everyone turned to see an elderly man at the back entrance. It was Dr. Thompson, the doctor from the community clinic. "Doctor?" Jack was confused. "How did you—" "Mrs. Margaret called me." He entered, closing the door behind him. "And I have a proposal." They sat around the table, and Dr. Thompson began to explain. "I know the feeling of being hunted, of having someone powerful wanting to control you." He looked directly at Emily. "Many years ago, I worked for a large hospital network. I discovered serious irregularities, wanted to report them. But the owners were very influential people. They tried to buy me off first, then threaten me. Eventually, I had to leave and start over, far from everything." "Why are you telling me this?" Emily asked. "Because I understand, and because I can help you." Dr. Thompson took a card from his pocket. "I know a lawyer. He retired here in town a few years ago, but still has a license to practice. If you need legal protection, he can help you get it." "Legal protection against my own father?" Emily let out a bitter laugh. "He has the best lawyers in the country." "But he doesn't have right on his side," Dr. Thompson replied. "You're of legal age. You're pregnant but capable of making your own decisions. No judge can force you to return home against your will, much less force you to give your baby up for adoption." Jack leaned forward. "But that won't stop her father from trying other methods." "No, but it will make things harder for him." Dr. Thompson agreed. "And sometimes that's all we need. Make it hard enough for the person to give up or at least reconsider their approach." Emily looked at the card the doctor had placed on the table. "Who is this lawyer?" "William Harrison," Mrs. Margaret answered before the doctor could. "He's trustworthy. He's helped many people here in town with legal matters. If anyone can help you, it's him." "But I don't have money to pay a lawyer," Emily protested. "Leave that to me." Dr. Thompson stood up. "William owes me a few favors. I'll call him early tomorrow, set up a meeting. Meanwhile, you stay here safe. Don't leave the auto shop for any reason until we have a better structured plan." After Dr. Thompson and Mrs. Margaret left, Jack and Emily were alone again. The tension in the air was palpable. "Do you think it will work?" Emily asked quietly. "This whole lawyer and legal protection plan?" "I don't know," Jack answered honestly. "But it's better than doing nothing." That night, neither of them slept much. Jack stayed on the floor as always, but his mind was racing, thinking about all the possible scenarios that could happen. Emily tossed and turned on the couch several times, one hand always protecting her belly, as if the simple gesture could protect the baby from everything that was to come. The next morning, before the sun had even fully risen, there were urgent knocks at the door. Jack jumped, alert, but relaxed upon hearing the familiar voice of Dr. Thompson. "Jack! Emily! Open up quickly!" When he opened the door, the doctor was breathless, as if he had been running. "William agreed to see you," he said to Emily. "But it has to be now, before that man, the detective, starts circling the town again." They hurried. Emily put a scarf over her head and sunglasses that Mrs. Margaret had left the night before, trying to disguise her appearance. Jack closed the auto shop, leaving a note saying he had an emergency, and the three of them headed to William Harrison's house. The lawyer lived in a simple but well-kept house on the outskirts of Riverdale. He was a tall man, with completely white hair and penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see through people. He must have been about 70, but moved with the agility of someone much younger. "Come in," he said as he opened the door, examining Emily from head to toe. "Dr. Thompson told me a bit about the situation over the phone, but I want to hear it from you." They sat in the modest living room, and Emily recounted the whole story again. William listened silently, making occasional notes on a yellow notepad. When she finished, he remained quiet for a long moment, thinking. "Your situation is complicated but not impossible," he finally said. "First, I need you to understand one thing. You have rights. You're of legal age, pregnant, but mentally capable. No court can force you to do anything against your will, including giving your child up for adoption." "My father has a lot of power," Emily said. He can try many things," William interrupted, "but there are limits to what even powerful people can do within the law, and if he crosses those limits, we can use that against him." "How?" William stood up and went to a bookshelf, taking out some documents. "First, we'll need to formally document your situation. You're here of your own free will, being treated well and receiving medical care. I'll prepare a statement recording all of this." He returned to his chair. "Second, I'll contact your father, not to negotiate your return but to set clear boundaries." "He won't accept that," Emily said, her voice full of doubt. "Maybe not, but at least he'll know you have legal representation, that you're not completely alone and vulnerable." William made a few more notes. "And if he tries anything illegal to force you back, we'll have grounds to sue." Ryan, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke. "What about the detective who's looking for her?" "What do we do if he shows up?" "Nothing," William replied simply. "Private detectives have no legal power. He can ask questions, he can offer money for information, but he can't force you to do anything. If he approaches you directly, you just say you're fine, that you're here of your own free will and that you don't want contact with your family at this time." "And if he doesn't accept that?" "Then he's harassing you, and we can take legal action." William smiled slightly. "Look, Emily, I know you're scared. Your father has probably spent your whole life making you believe he's all-powerful, that he can control everything and everyone. But the truth is, he's just a man, subject to the same laws as anyone else." Emily seemed to consider this, and for the first time in days there was a spark of hope in her eyes. "So, what do we do now?" "Now, you go back to the auto shop with Ryan and continue your life as normal," William began writing on his notepad. "I'll start working on the legal documents. I'll also try to contact your father to establish formal communication, and in the meantime you stay calm and take care of that baby." When they left William's house, Emily seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. But when they got back to the auto shop, they found an unpleasant surprise waiting for them. Richard Coleman, the elegant man who had appeared days earlier, was standing in front of the shop. Next to him was another man, older and also well-dressed, and there was a luxury car parked on the street. Ryan felt Emily freeze beside him. "It's him," she whispered. "My father." The older man had greying hair combed back, an angular face, and cold eyes that examined Emily with a mixture of relief and anger. He wore an impeccable suit and exuded power and authority. "Emily," his voice was deep and controlled. "Finally." Emily took a step back, but Jack moved discreetly to her side, a silent gesture of support. "Father," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. The man looked at Jack with disdain. "And you must be the mechanic who's been sheltering my daughter." "Jack Miller," he answered, keeping his voice firm. "And yes, Emily is staying here, of her own free will." "Free will?" Emily's father let out a humorless laugh. "My daughter is pregnant, confused, running away from home. She's clearly not in a position to make rational decisions." "I'm right here, Father." Emily spoke, her voice growing stronger. "And I can speak for myself." Her father ignored this and addressed Jack. "How much do you want? 10,000? 20? Name your price and let my daughter come home with me." "I don't want your money," Jack replied calmly. "And your daughter isn't a commodity you can buy." The man's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. "Emily, enough of this nonsense." He finally spoke directly to her. "You've had your rebellious moment, made your point, now come home." Let's forget this ever happened. No. Emily's answer was simple and direct. No? Her father took a step forward, and Jack instantly moved to stand between him and Emily. The man stopped, assessing Jack with new eyes. You don't understand what you're doing, young man. Interfering in family matters can have serious consequences. Are you threatening me? Jack asked. I'm warning you. Emily's father took a wallet from his pocket and pulled out several business cards. This is my lawyer, this is my accountant, this is my personal assistant. They can all make your life very difficult if you continue with this misguided hospitality. I have a lawyer too. Emily spoke suddenly, surprising even Jack. William Harrison. And he's already aware of the whole situation. Emily's father seemed genuinely surprised for a moment, but quickly regained his composure. William Harrison. He repeated the name as if memorizing it. I'll remember that. He looked at his daughter again. Emily, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. When this baby is born, when you realize you have no resources, no support, nothing, you'll regret it. Maybe. Emily placed a protective hand on her belly. But at least I'll be living my own life, making my own decisions, not being a pawn in your corporate chess game. The words clearly hit her father, but he didn't show it. Instead, he turned to Richard. Let's go. There's nothing more we can do here. He started walking toward the car, but stopped and looked back one last time. This offer has an expiration date, Emily. When you realize how ungrateful you're being, when you realize you're throwing away everything I built for you, don't come crying to come back. They got in the car and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and tension in the air. Emily collapsed, literally. Her legs gave way, and she would have fallen if Jack hadn't caught her. He helped her into the auto shop, sitting her on the couch. She was shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. You were amazing, Jack said, kneeling in front of her. The way you stood up to him. I only managed to do it because you were by my side. Emily wiped the tears that had started to fall. If I had been alone, I don't know if I could have said no. But you did, and that's what matters. Jack got a glass of water and offered it to her. Now your father knows you won't come back easily. He won't give up. Emily drank the water in small sips. You don't know him. He never accepts defeat. He'll keep trying, in different ways. Then we keep resisting. Jack sat down beside her. In different ways, too. The following days were tense. Emily's father's visit had caused a stir in Riverdale. Now everyone knew who she really was, and opinions in the town were divided. Mrs. Margaret and Dr. Thompson continued to support Emily unconditionally. Frank also maintained his loyalty to Jack, as did most of the auto shop's long-time customers. But there were others who whispered in corners, saying Emily was ungrateful, that she was wasting the luck of being born into a wealthy family. Mark's grocery store started charging more for the products Jack bought, a subtle form of pressure. The auto shop's parts supplier, who had connections with larger companies in the capital, began delaying deliveries, forcing Jack to seek more expensive alternatives. It's starting, Jack said to William during a meeting a week after Emily's father's visit. The subtle but effective pressure. William nodded gravely. It was to be expected. A man with her father's resources can make people's lives difficult without ever doing anything directly illegal. He flipped through some documents on his desk. But there's good news too. I managed to get in touch with his lawyer. We've established some basic parameters. What kind of parameters? Emily asked. She was sitting next to Jack, one hand constantly on her belly, which grew more prominent each day. First, he agrees to stop the active pursuit. No more detectives, no more reward offers. William raised a finger. In return, you agree to have a monthly medical checkup with a professional approved by both parties, just to confirm that you and the baby are well. And if I don't want to have these exams? Emily asked. Then he has grounds to argue in court that you're being irresponsible with the pregnancy, William explained. Look, I know it's not ideal, but it's a reasonable compromise. You need prenatal care anyway. Doing it with a specific doctor doesn't change much. Emily looked at Jack, seeking his opinion. I think it makes sense, he said, And at least it takes the pressure off having people investigating you all the time. There's more, William continued. He wants you to sign a document confirming that you're where you are of your own free will, that you're not being coerced or held against your will. Why does he want that? Jack asked, suspicious. Legal protection, William explained. If something goes wrong, if you get hurt or there's any problem, he wants documentation proving that he tried to help you and you refused. It's a smart move on his part, honestly. And what else does he want? Emily asked, knowing there must be more. He wants you to consider coming back home after the baby is born, William said carefully. Not immediately, but eventually. He's willing to make concessions. You can live in a separate property if you want, you can have your independence, but he wants to be part of his grandchild's life. Emily was silent for a long moment. And if I say no? Then there's no agreement, and things continue as they are, with him applying indirect pressure, making everyone's life harder. William sighed. Look, Emily, I understand your resistance, but think about it from a practical standpoint. This baby will need many things: education, healthcare, opportunities. Your father can provide all of that. But at what cost? Emily asked. My freedom? My independence? The chance to raise my child the way I want? Not necessarily. William leaned forward. The agreement can be structured to protect your rights. You retain full custody, make all decisions about upbringing and education. Your father just participates, like a normal grandfather would. But he was never normal, Emily said bitterly. And it's not going to start being now. Jack, who had been listening to the conversation, finally spoke. Maybe you don't need to decide that right now, he suggested. Focus on having the baby first, on staying healthy. We'll figure out the rest later. Emily looked at him with gratitude. You always try to see the bright side of things, don't you? Someone has to. Jack smiled slightly. They signed the partial agreement that William had negotiated. Emily agreed to the monthly checkups and the statement that she was there of her own free will. In return, the subtle pressures on Jack and the auto shop lessened. They didn't disappear completely, but they became tolerable. The weeks passed, and a routine set in. Emily continued working on organizing the auto shop's office, and Jack was impressed by how much she had improved the business's efficiency. The bills were organized, customers were paying on time because she had implemented a gentle but effective billing system, and even the tax paperwork was in order. You're good at this, Jack commented one afternoon, looking at the system she had created. Better than Sarah was, to be honest. Thank you, Emily smiled. It's good to know I can contribute something useful. One evening, while they were having dinner, Emily started asking questions about Sarah. How did you two meet? Jack put his fork down on his plate, a nostalgic smile appearing on his face. Actually, it was here at the auto shop, he began. She had brought her father's car in for repairs. I was newly certified, had just opened the shop and was trying to impress every customer. I ended up fixing the car for free, just to have an excuse to see her again. Did that work? Emily asked, smiling. More or less. She came back to pick up the car and scolded me for not charging her. Said I'd never keep a business afloat that way. Jack laughed. But then she invited me for coffee to give me business lessons. And, well, we never really got around to talking much about business. She was special, wasn't she? She was. Jack looked at the picture on the wall. She was practical, organized, said what was on her mind. But she was also kind, always helping people. We argued sometimes, mostly about money and how to run the shop. But at the end of the day, we always worked it out. How did she... Emily hesitated. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But how did she pass away? Jack was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. It was a car accident. She was coming back from a trip to see her family in the capital. A truck lost control, hit the side of her car. His voice grew heavy. She passed away before they even got her to the hospital. Jack, I'm so sorry. The worst part was that we had argued that morning, he confessed. A silly argument about me giving too big a discount to a customer who was going through a hard time. She said I was too kind for my own good. I said she was too cold. And then she left, and those were the last words we exchanged. Emily reached out and held Jack's hand on the table. She knew you loved her. I'm sure of it. I know. Rationally, I know. Jack squeezed her hand back. But it still hurts, you know, not having had the chance to apologize, to tell her how much she meant. They stayed like that for a moment. Two strangers fate had brought together, both carrying their own pain and fears. Can I ask you something? Jack broke the silence. About your baby's father. Do you still think about him? Emily let go of Jack's hand and placed hers on her belly. Sometimes, she admitted. Especially when I feel the baby move. I wonder if he thinks about the child too, if he regrets taking my father's money. Do you think he regrets it? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe he's happy living his life without worries. She sighed. The truth is, I found out I never really knew him. I saw what I wanted to see, not who he really was. That doesn't mean what you felt wasn't real, Jack said. It just means he wasn't who you thought he was. It's hard to think that way. It feels like I wasted so much time, so much emotion on someone who didn't deserve it. Emily wiped a tear that started to fall. And now I'm going to raise this baby alone because I was foolish enough to trust the wrong person. You're not alone, Jack said firmly. I know I'm not the baby's father. I know our situation is unusual. But you're not alone. I'm here. And I'll stay here. Emily looked at him with emotion. Why? Why do you care so much? Jack thought about the question. Really thought about it. Because when Sarah passed away, I thought I'd never feel purpose in life again, that I'd just exist, fix cars, pass the days until, I don't know, until it ends. He looked into her eyes. But then you showed up, and suddenly I had something to do again, someone to protect, a reason to wake up in the morning beyond the routine. I can't be your reason for living, Jack, Emily said gently. That's not fair to either of us. I know, and it's not that. Jack tried to explain better. It's more that you reminded me that there's still kindness in the world, that things are still worth fighting for. That's important to me. Before Emily could answer, she let out a cry of pain and brought both hands to her belly. Emily? What's wrong? Jack stood up immediately. I don't know, a sharp pain. She was pale. And another one. Jack, something's wrong. Jack didn't waste any time. He grabbed the truck keys and helped Emily up, but when she took her first step, her legs gave way. I can't walk properly, she said, frightened. Jack picked her up in his arms, ignoring her protests that she was too heavy, and ran to the truck. He drove at high speed to the community clinic, honking frantically until Dr. Thompson came out of his house next door. What happened? The doctor asked, already grabbing his medical bag. Sharp, sudden pains, Jack explained while helping Emily into the clinic. She can't walk properly. Doctor. Thompson examined Emily quickly, his face growing more serious by the second. They're contractions, he said, but it's too early. You're only 7 months along. The baby, Emily began, panic evident in her voice. Calm down. We'll do everything we can. Dr. Thompson turned to Jack. Call the ambulance. She needs to go to the hospital in the neighboring town. Here I don't have the equipment to handle a premature birth. Jack made the call, but the ambulance said it would take at least 40 minutes to get to Riverdale. We don't have that kind of time, Dr. Thompson said after another examination. The contractions are too close together. Jack, you'll have to take her now in the truck. I'm coming with you. The trip to the hospital was the longest of Jack's life. Dr. Thompson sat in the back seat with Emily, monitoring her contractions and trying to keep her calm. Emily squeezed the doctor's hand so hard his fingers turned white, and tears streamed constantly down her face. This isn't how it's supposed to be, she repeated between contractions. It's too early. The baby isn't ready. 7-month babies can survive, Dr. Thompson assured. Medicine has advanced a lot. Your baby has good chances. When they arrived at the hospital, a team was already waiting. Dr. Thompson had called ahead to let them know they were coming. Emily was immediately taken to the delivery room, and Jack stayed in the waiting room feeling completely helpless. Mrs. Margaret arrived half an hour later, alerted by Dr. Thompson. She sat beside Jack, offering silent comfort. "She's going to be okay," the woman said, "and the baby too." "How can you be sure?" Jack asked, his voice hoarse. "I can't," Mrs. Margaret admitted, "but I need to believe it. And you need to as well." The hours dragged on. Jack paced back and forth in the waiting room, unable to stay still. Every time a nurse passed by, he stopped, hoping for news, but there was none. It was nearly dawn when Dr. Thompson finally emerged, still wearing his medical coat. He was exhausted, but smiling. "It's a boy," he said. "Small, born at just 5.5 pounds. But he's alive and breathing." "And Emily?" Jack asked immediately. "She's fine. Tired, obviously, but fine." Dr. Thompson placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "She's asking for you." Jack almost ran to the room where Emily was. She was pale, exhausted, with hair stuck to her forehead from sweat, but her eyes lit up when she saw him enter. "Jack," she smiled weakly. "You stayed here the whole time?" "Where else would I be?" He approached the bed, taking her hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," she tried to laugh, but it came out as a groan. "But it was worth it. Have you seen him?" "Not yet. They said he's in the NICU." "He's so small, Jack." Tears began to fall again. "So tiny and fragile. What if—" "No," Jack interrupted. "Don't think like that. He's strong. He has to be, with a mother like you." A nurse entered at that moment. "Miss Emily, you can see your baby now if you'd like. He's stable." They put Emily in a wheelchair, and Jack pushed her to the NICU. When they first saw the baby inside an incubator, connected to various tubes and monitors, both were speechless. He was tiny, with reddish, wrinkled skin. His eyes were closed, and his chest rose and fell at a regular but fast pace. But he was alive, fighting, strong despite it all. "He's perfect," Emily whispered, placing her hand on the incubator glass. "Completely perfect." Jack stood beside her, looking at that little human who had turned their lives upside down in recent months. Unplanned, unprepared, a baby had arrived, and with him, a renewed reason to fight. "What are you going to name him?" Jack asked. Emily thought for a moment. "Ethan," she said finally. "Like St. Peter, the patron saint of this town that welcomed us. Ethan Miller." "Miller?" Jack was surprised. "Yes," Emily looked at him. "Because you've been more of a father to him than the biological father ever would be. If that's okay with you." Jack felt a lump in his throat, too moved to speak. He just nodded, and the two stood there, watching little Ethan as the sun rose outside the hospital window. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Ethan remained in the NICU, fighting to gain weight and strength. Emily stayed in the hospital for 3 days after giving birth, and Jack visited every day, bringing clean clothes, homemade food, and companionship. It was on the 3rd day that Emily's father showed up. Jack was in the room with her when the door opened, and the man entered looking older and more tired than the last time. "Dad," Emily said, not with anger, but with weariness. "I came as soon as I heard," he said, keeping his distance from the bed. "Richard called me saying you had gone into premature labor." "How did you know?" Jack asked, immediately suspicious. "I have an arrangement with Dr. Thompson," Emily's father explained. "He keeps me informed about her health. It's part of the legal agreement you signed." Emily vaguely remembered that now. The agreement William had negotiated included monthly updates on her health. Apparently, Dr. Thompson had considered the premature birth important enough to notify immediately. "What did you come for?" Emily asked. "To say I should have stayed home, where I would have had better medical care?" "No." The answer surprised everyone. "I came to see my grandson, and to—" He stopped as if the next words were hard to say. "To apologize." The silence in the room was absolute. Emily and Jack exchanged shocked glances. "Apologize," Emily finally repeated. "You?" Her father walked to the window, looking out. "When Richard called me saying you were in the hospital, that the baby was born premature," he took a deep breath. "I realized I could have lost you. Both of you. And why? Because of stubbornness. Because of pride. Because I wanted to control everything." He turned to face his daughter. "I grew up poor, Emily, you know that. My father worked 3 jobs to support the family. My mother washed people's clothes until her hands bled. I swore my children would never go through that I would build something to protect them. But in the process you forgot that protection isn't control," Emily said softly. "You built a golden prison." "I know," he admitted, and for the first time, Emily saw real vulnerability on his face. "When I found out about the pregnancy, about that boy, all I could think was that you were making the same mistake your mother made with me." "What mistake?" Emily was confused. "You and Mom have a successful marriage." "Now, yes," her father agreed. "But when your grandfather found out about our relationship, he did exactly what I did to you. He investigated me, found out I was poor, offered me money to disappear, and I almost took it." Jack was listening intently, as was Emily. "What made you not take it?" she asked. "Your mother." A small smile appeared on his face. "She confronted me, said if I took that money, she would find me and beat me up, said we were stronger than his money, that we were going to prove it." "And you did?" "Yes, but it was hard." He sat in the chair next to the bed. "The first years were a real struggle. Your grandfather cut your mother off from the inheritance. We went through hardships. And then you were born, and I promised I would do everything so you would never know what it's like to be in need." "But you went too far," Emily said. "You tried to protect me from everything, including living my own life." "I know," he repeated. "And when you ran away, when you chose to struggle instead of accepting my help, you reminded me of your mother. Stubborn, determined, impossible to control, and I realized I had become exactly what I hated. Your grandfather." He looked at Jack for the first time since he started telling the story. "And you," he said. "You reminded me of who I was, a poor man who helped a pregnant young woman not for money, but because it was the right thing to do." Jack didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet. "Can I see my grandson?" Emily's father asked, turning his attention back to his daughter. Emily hesitated, then nodded. The 3 went to the neonatal ICU, where little Ethan was a bit bigger than the day before, but still fragile and connected to the machines. When the grandfather saw his grandson for the first time, something in him broke. Tears streamed down his face, and he placed his hand on the incubator glass just as Emily had done. "He's so small," he whispered. "So fragile. But strong," Emily said beside him. "Very strong." They stood there for several minutes, just watching the baby. Then Emily's father turned to her. "Let me help," he asked. "Not to control, not to have power over you, but to help. This baby will need medical care, will need many things. Let me give that to him. As a grandfather." Emily looked at Jack, seeking his opinion. He gave a small nod, making it clear the decision was hers. "With conditions," she finally said. "I make the decisions about Ethan. I decide where we live, how he's raised, everything. You can help financially, you can be part of his life, but as a grandfather, not as a controller. I accept." He agreed immediately. "And one more thing, this young man." He gestured toward Jack. "I want to compensate him for what he did for my daughter. His auto shop is having problems because of me, I know. Let me fix that." "I don't need charity," Jack said. "It's not charity, it's recognition." Emily's father insisted. "You took care of my daughter when I wasn't there. You protected her, gave her a safe place. That's priceless, but at least let me try to thank you." Jack looked at Emily, who nodded encouragingly. "All right," he finally agreed. But nothing excessive, just enough to get the auto shop back on track. In the following days, things began to change quickly. Emily's father was a man of his word. He hired the best neonatologists to follow Ethan's case, ensuring he received the best possible care. He also spoke with the suppliers and partners who had cut ties with Jack, reversing the boycotts. But more important than that, he began trying to rebuild his relationship with Emily. It wasn't easy or quick. There were years of hurt and resentment to work through, but they were trying, and that was what mattered. 2 weeks after his birth, Ethan was finally discharged from the NICU. He had gained enough weight, could breathe on his own, and was nursing normally. When Emily held him in her arms for the first time without tubes and monitors, she cried with relief and happiness. "Hello, my love," she whispered to the baby. "Welcome to the world. Finally." Jack was beside her, and when Ethan grabbed his finger with his tiny hand, he felt a connection he had never experienced before. That wasn't his biological son, but in his heart he already loved that child as if he were. The hospital discharge was an event. Mrs. Margaret, Dr. Thompson, Frank, and several other residents of Riverdale showed up to welcome Emily and Ethan. They had brought gifts, baby clothes, diapers, a crib that Frank had built by hand, blankets that Mrs. Margaret had knitted. "Look at this." Emily was moved. "You didn't have to—" "Of course we did," Mrs. Margaret said, adjusting the blanket over Ethan. "You're part of our community now, and we take care of our own." Back at the auto shop, Jack had prepared a special space for Ethan. The sofa had been replaced with a proper crib, and he had set up a specific area for diaper changes and baby care. It wasn't elaborate, but it was functional and made with love. "You did all this?" Emily asked, looking around in amazement. "I had help," Jack admitted. Mrs. Margaret supervised, Frank built the crib, and a few other customers contributed things. "It's perfect." Emily carefully placed Ethan in the crib, watching him sleep. Absolutely perfect. That night, after Ethan was asleep and the excitement of the day had passed, Emily and Jack sat at the table with coffee. "So what happens now?" Jack asked. "What do you mean?" "Well, your father is back in your life. You have resources now, options." Jack stirred his coffee, avoiding looking directly at her. "You don't have to stay here in this small auto shop with a widowed mechanic who can barely pay the bills." Emily looked at him for a long moment. "Are you trying to push me away?" "No," Jack quickly denied. I don't want you to feel like you're trapped here, that you owe me anything." "Jack." Emily set her cup on the table and took his hand. "Over the past few months, you've been more family to me than anyone of my own blood, except maybe for Ethan. You took me in when I had nothing, protected me when I was vulnerable, gave me a purpose when I felt lost. I did what any decent person would do. No, most people would have taken me to the police station or called my father to collect the reward." She squeezed his hand. "You chose to help me without expecting anything in return, and now you're giving me the option to leave, even if it means being alone again. That says a lot about who you are." Jack finally looked into her eyes. "I don't want you to go," he confessed, "but I also don't want you to stay out of obligation or gratitude." "What if I stay because I want to?" Emily asked softly. "Because I like it here. I like the people. I like the work at the auto shop. I like you." The last part she said more quietly, almost a whisper, but Jack heard it clearly. "Emily, you just had a baby. You went through trauma. You're vulnerable. We shouldn't make important decisions right now." "You're right," she agreed. "But that doesn't mean what I feel isn't real." She stood up. "But we can think about it later. For now, let's just focus on taking care of Ethan and keeping the auto shop running." In the following weeks, they developed a routine. Jack took care of the auto shop during the day, and Emily took care of Ethan, splitting the feedings and diaper changes between the two of them. At night, they took turns staying up when the baby cried, supporting each other through the exhaustion of new parenthood. Emily's father visited regularly, usually on weekends. He brought gifts that were too expensive, which Emily gently but firmly asked him to tone down. But most importantly, he was learning to be a grandfather, to hold Ethan, to change diapers, to simply be present without trying to control everything. During one of these visits, he pulled Jack aside while Emily was breastfeeding Ethan. "I want to make you a proposal," he said, "and before you refuse, hear me out." Jack crossed his arms, ready to reject anything that sounded like charity. I'm expanding my business into the region. I'm going to open a chain of auto shops, specialized in imported cars, he explained. I want you to be the general manager. You would train mechanics, supervise operations, ensure quality, generous salary, benefits, everything. No, Jack answered immediately. Why not? It's an excellent opportunity. Because I love what I do here. Jack gestured to the auto shop around them. This auto shop may be small, may not make much profit, but it's mine. I know every customer, every car that comes through here. I don't want to manage a corporation. Emily's father nodded as if he expected that answer. Then what if I modify the proposal? What if, instead of a corporate chain, we created something different? Training auto shops, where young people from underprivileged communities learn the trade. You would be the main mentor, teaching not just mechanics, but also how to run a business honestly. Jack paused. That was different. Go on. You keep your auto shop here exactly as it is, but you also help set up similar auto shops in neighboring towns. Training, support, mentorship, he explained. Emily could manage the administrative side, using her knowledge. It would be a legacy, not a business. Jack considered the proposal. It wasn't charity, it wasn't control. It was an opportunity to make a real difference. Let me think about it, he finally said, and talk to Emily about it. Of course, no pressure. Emily's father extended his hand. I just want you to know I respect you, Jack. What you did for my daughter, and it's priceless. And now you're raising my grandson as your own. That deserves recognition. When Emily and Jack discussed the proposal that night, she was excited. It's perfect, she said, gently rocking Ethan in her arms. You could help so many people, teach them a valuable trade, and I could use my skills for something meaningful, not just to increase a company's profits. But this would change everything, Jack argued. Our routine, our quiet life here. Yes, it would, Emily agreed. But change isn't necessarily bad. Look at us, Jack. A few months ago I was running on the road, pregnant and desperate. You were living in the past, stuck in your pain, and now we have a baby. We have purpose, we have hope. Jack looked at Ethan, who was sleeping peacefully in Emily's arms. When you put it like that, he smiled. But let's take it slow, okay? One step at a time. The months passed, and Ethan grew quickly. He was a cheerful baby who smiled easily and rarely cried. The residents of Riverdale loved seeing him, and it was common for customers to stop their work just to cuddle the baby. Jack and Emily slowly began implementing the workshop school project. They started small, with a pilot program at Jack's own auto shop, where 2 young people from the community came 3 times a week to learn the trade. Jack discovered he loved teaching, that there was immense satisfaction in passing his knowledge to the next generation. During this time, the relationship between Jack and Emily also evolved. It wasn't sudden or dramatic. It was gradual, built on small but meaningful moments. The way he woke up in the middle of the night to calm Ethan when she was exhausted. The way she waited for him, with dinner ready after long workdays. The late-night conversations about dreams and fears. The glances that lasted a little longer than they should. It was Mrs. Margaret who finally confronted them. Are you two blind or just stubborn? She asked one day when visiting the auto shop. Ethan was playing with blocks on the floor, and Emily and Jack were working together on some accounts. What are you talking about? Emily asked, confused. About you two. Mrs. Margaret gestured between them. Anyone with eyes can see you love each other, but you keep walking in circles, doing nothing about it. Mrs. Margaret, Jack began, but she interrupted him. No, you need to hear this. She sat down, becoming serious. Life is short. Very short. You both know that better than anyone. Jack, you lost Sarah. Emily, you were betrayed by Ethan's father. You both have scars, but those scars shouldn't stop you from living again. There was an uncomfortable silence. Ethan, oblivious to the tension, continued playing happily. I'm scared, Emily finally admitted, looking at Ethan. Scared of ruining what we have. Jack has been amazing, but what if I don't meet expectations? What if he realizes I'm not Sarah? I don't want you to be Sarah, Jack said softly. I loved Sarah. I always will. She was an important part of my life. But you... You're different. And that's good. You made me want to live again, not just exist. Then why don't we do something about it? Emily asked, looking directly at him. Because I'm scared too, Jack confessed. Scared that you'll realize you can do better. You're young, smart, beautiful. I'm just a small-town mechanic with more past than future. Margaret shook her head, exasperated. You two are impossible. She stood up. I'll let you work this out. But do it soon because you're wasting precious time. She left, leaving Jack and Emily alone with Ethan. She's not wrong, Emily said after a moment. About us wasting time. No, she's not, Jack agreed. But Emily, we need to be realistic. If we start something and it doesn't work out, it's not just the two of us who'll get hurt, it's Ethan too. He already thinks of me as his father. He is your son, Emily said firmly. Not biologically, but in every other way that matters. You've been there for him since before he was born. You hold him when he cries, you change his diapers, you sing him to sleep. You're his father. Jack felt his eyes well up. I don't want to lose you, he confessed. Either of you. But I also don't want to pressure you into something you're not ready for. Emily stood and walked over to Jack. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. Feel that? It's beating fast because you're near, she said. I love you, Jack. Not in the same way I loved Ethan's biological father. That was immature and based on illusions. This is real, built on shared experiences and mutual respect. Jack looked into her eyes, searching for any sign of doubt. All he saw was certainty. I love you too, he finally said. From the moment you started working in that messy office, organizing my life without asking for anything in return. From the first genuine smile you gave me. From the first time you held Ethan and your eyes shone with a mother's love. They kissed then, softly and carefully, as if sealing something precious and fragile. Ethan, sensing something different in the air, stopped playing and looked at them, then let out a happy giggle, as if giving his approval. After that day, things changed between Jack and Emily, but not in the dramatic way they might have expected. The routine remained largely the same, but now there was a deeper connection, an understanding that they were a real family, not just by circumstance but by choice. The vocational workshop project began to expand. With financial support from Emily's father and Jack's expertise, they opened a second workshop in a neighboring town, then a third. Each was managed locally, but all followed the same model, teaching underprivileged youth not just mechanics, but also work ethic, honesty, and how to build a business fairly. Their story began to spread. Regional newspapers wrote about the project, about how a small-town mechanic and a businessman's daughter were creating real opportunities for young people who otherwise wouldn't have access to proper vocational education. It was during one of these interviews that Emily was asked about her relationship with Jack. He's my partner, she answered simply, in every sense of the word. Business partner, life partner, father of my son. But he's not the biological father, correct? The journalist asked. Fatherhood isn't defined by genetics, Emily replied firmly. It's defined by presence, by love, by dedication. Jack is Ethan's father in every way that matters. The interview caused some buzz, but mostly positive. People began seeking out the vocational workshops not just to learn, but to be part of something that represented genuine values. On Ethan's first birthday, they threw a party at the auto shop. Half the town showed up, along with Emily's father, her brother, who had apologized for sabotaging the car and was trying to fix their relationship. And even Sarah had been remembered with a photo of her on the gift table, because as Jack said, she was also part of their story. Ethan, wearing a little blue outfit that Mrs. Margaret had sewn especially for the occasion, was beaming with all the attention. He had recently learned to walk and was toddling around the auto shop, laughing as he was chased by several people trying to catch him. During the party, Emily's father pulled Jack aside. "There's something I want to give you." He handed Jack an envelope. "What is this?" "Open it." Jack opened the envelope and found legal documents. It took him a moment to process what he was seeing. You're giving me the auto shop?" He was shocked. "Not exactly," Emily's father explained. "I'm putting it in both your names, yours and Emily's. Legally, you'll be co-owners not just of this auto shop, but of the entire training workshop project. Why? Because you two are what make it work. He looked over to where Emily was holding Ethan, laughing at something Mrs. Margaret had said. I provide the capital, but you provide the heart. And in the end, it's the heart that makes the difference. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. Emily's father put his hand on Jack's shoulder. Just take care of my daughter and my grandson. Keep doing what you do. That's more than enough. 6 months later, in a simple ceremony at the small church in Riverdale, Jack and Emily got married. It wasn't grand. There weren't hundreds of guests or elaborate decorations. It was just the community that had welcomed them, witnessing the union of two people fate had unexpectedly brought together. Ethan was the ring bearer, though he mostly tried to put the rings in his mouth. Mrs. Margaret cried throughout the entire ceremony, as did half the guests. Emily's father walked her down the aisle, and when the priest asked who gives the bride, he answered, No one gives her. She chooses for herself, but I approve and bless this union. At the reception held in the town square, Dr. Thompson made a toast. A year ago I witnessed a birth, a small premature baby fighting for life. He raised his glass. But today I realize it wasn't just one birth I witnessed. It was the birth of a family, built not on blood or obligation, but on genuine love and conscious choice. I toast the newlyweds, who have taught us that family is what we create, not just what we inherit. Everyone raised their glasses, and Jack kissed Emily as the small crowd applauded. The years that followed were ones of growth and learning. The training workshops expanded to 5 towns, employing and teaching dozens of young people. Some of these young people eventually opened their own shops, creating a network of honest, skilled mechanics in the region. Ethan grew up surrounded by love, knowing no other life than the one with Jack as his father. When he was 5, in a casual conversation during dinner, he asked, Dad, why is my skin different from yours? Jack and Emily exchanged looks. They had prepared for this moment, knowing it would come eventually. Because you're special, Jack replied, pulling Ethan onto his lap. You have a father who didn't have to make you to love you. I chose you, and I keep choosing you every day. Are you my real dad? Ethan asked, his little eyes serious. I am your real dad, Jack confirmed. There's a man somewhere who helped make you, but I'm the one who's here, who teaches you, who loves you. That makes me as much a dad as anyone can be. Ethan thought about it for a moment, then smiled. Then I'm lucky. I have a father who chose me. We're the lucky ones, Emily said, joining the hug. We chose you. A little sister for Ethan was born when he was 6, this time without complications, without prematurity, without drama. A girl they named Emma, in honor of Sarah, because, as Jack said, he wanted to honor the past while building the future. Ethan loved being a big brother. He was protective and kind to Emma, always making sure she was okay. When Emma was 2 and Ethan 8, Jack took them for the first time to visit Sarah's grave. She would have loved you both, Jack said, arranging the flowers they had brought. She always wanted a big family. Do you still love her, Dad? Ethan asked with the brutal honesty of children. Yes, but I also love your mother, Jack explained. The human heart is big enough to love more than one person in different ways. I loved Sarah, she made me who I am, and I love your mother, who gave me a second chance to have a family. And you love us too, Emma added with her childish voice. And I love you both more than anything, Jack confirmed, hugging them both. When Ethan was 10, he expressed interest in learning mechanics, wanting to work at the auto shop like his father. Jack was excited but also cautious. You don't have to be a mechanic just because I am, he said. You can be whatever you want. But I want to be like you, Ethan insisted. You help people, you teach people. That's cool. And so Ethan began learning the trade, spending weekends at the auto shop, watching Jack work, doing small tasks, absorbing knowledge. Emily watched from afar, her heart full of gratitude for how things had turned out. Emily's father, now a loving and present grandfather, visited regularly. He had partially retired, leaving the business empire in the hands of his eldest son, and dedicated more time to family. The relationship between him and Emily had been completely rebuilt, now based on mutual respect and genuine love, not control and obligation. During one of these visits, he sat with Jack in the auto shop while they watched Ethan and Emma playing in the yard. "You saved my daughter," he said suddenly. "I never thanked you properly for that." "I didn't save her," Jack corrected. "She saved herself. I was just there when she needed me." "Still," the older man was quiet for a moment, "you know, when I was young and poor, I thought money would solve all problems. That if I were rich enough, powerful enough, I could protect my family from everything. And now I realize the most important things can't be bought." He looked at the children. "They have something I never managed to give my children when they were little. They have emotional security. They have parents who are present, who love them unconditionally." "You're giving that to your son now, to your grandchildren," Jack pointed out. "It's never too late to fix things. You're wise for a small-town mechanic," Jack's father-in-law smiled. "And you're humble for a wealthy businessman." Jack returned the smile. They laughed together, two unlikely people who had become family not by blood, but by choice and circumstance. In the years that followed, the story of Jack and Emily became almost legendary in Riverdale and the surrounding towns. Not because it was extraordinary, but precisely because it was common. It was a story about ordinary people making good choices, about communities coming together to support their own, about second chances and families created not by blood ties, but by bonds of love. The training auto shops continued growing, eventually expanding to other regions of the country. Each one held the same core values: honesty, hard work, and commitment to the community. Graduates of the program had high employment rates, and many opened their own businesses, continuing the cycle of helping others. Emily published a book about the experience, not as a biography, but as a guide for others who wanted to create similar social programs. The book became popular among social entrepreneurs and NGOs, and she began giving talks on how to unite social purpose with financial sustainability. Jack, on the other hand, remained true to his roots. He continued working at the original auto shop in Riverdale, teaching not just mechanics, but also life values. His students adored him, and many kept in touch years after graduating, considering him not just a teacher but a life mentor. When Ethan was 15, he surprised Jack with a request. "Dad, can I meet my biological father?" Jack felt a pang of fear but kept his voice calm. "Of course, if that's what you want." He paused. "Why do you want to meet him?" "Curiosity, I guess," Ethan replied honestly. "It's not that I think he'll be my dad or anything. You're my dad, but I want to know where I come from, you know? Who he is, why he did what he did." "That's normal," Emily said, joining the conversation. She had been listening from the doorway. "And we won't stop you, but Ethan, you need to be prepared that he might not be who you expect." "I know," Ethan looked at both of them, "but I need to try." William Harrison, who was now a close family friend, helped locate Ethan's biological father. He was living in a coastal town, working at a hotel, apparently having used the money he received from Emily's father to start a business that failed. The meeting was arranged in a neutral setting at a public cafe, with Jack and Emily present, but keeping their distance. Ethan sat with the man who was biologically his father, but was a complete stranger to him. The conversation lasted an hour. When Ethan returned, Jack and Emily anxiously waited to hear how it went. He's pretty normal," Ethan said, looking almost disappointed. "Like, he's not a monster, but he's not special either. He apologized for what he did, said he was cowardly, asked about my life, seemed genuinely happy to know I'm doing well." "And how do you feel?" Emily asked. Ethan thought for a moment. "Relieved," he finally said. "Like, now I know where I come from biologically, but I also know I didn't miss out on anything. He's just a guy. But you..." Ethan looked at Jack. "You're my dad, in every way that matters." Jack hugged Ethan, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for choosing me too." The years kept passing. Emma grew up and decided to follow a different path, interested in medicine. She wanted to be a pediatrician, inspired by Dr. Thompson, who was now very old, but still made occasional visits to the community clinic. Jack and Emily grew old together, their lives so intertwined that it was hard to imagine one without the other. They had their differences, their occasional disagreements, but always resolved them with conversation and compromise. The original auto shop in Riverdale became a local landmark, not because of its historical importance, but because of the story it represented. Visitors came from far away to see the place where it all began, where an honest mechanic helped a pregnant young woman, and together they built something bigger than themselves. Margaret, who had been crucial in helping Emily in the early days, passed away peacefully at 85. At her funeral, half the town attended. Jack and Emily spoke about how she had been essential in their lives, how her unconditional love and practical wisdom had guided them both through difficult times. "She was a mother to me when I had no one," Emily said during the funeral, "and she forced us to face our feelings when we were too stubborn to do it alone." Frank also passed away a few years later, and with each loss, the Riverdale community came together, crying together, supporting one another, remembering that life is precious and should be lived fully. Ethan graduated as a mechanic and took over managing the original auto shop when Jack decided to semi-retire. He had the technical skill of his adoptive father and the administrative sense of his mother, becoming an excellent leader. Under his management, the shop continued to prosper, but maintained its core values. Emma graduated in medicine and returned to Riverdale to work at the community clinic, now modernized but still serving the low-income community. She met and married one of the young men who had been trained in the training workshops, a kind young man named Ryan who had his own auto shop in the neighboring town. When Jack was 65, he and Emily celebrated 20 years of marriage. The party was in the same central square where the wedding had been, and it seemed like the whole town was there. During the speeches, Emily's father, now over 80 but still sharp and active, stood up to speak. "You all know the story," he began, his voice still strong, "about how my daughter ran away, how Jack helped her, how they built a life together. But what you might not know is how much they taught me." He looked at Emily and Jack. "I spent most of my life thinking success was measured in money and power. I controlled, manipulated, always tried to be 3 steps ahead." He paused, emotional. "But you two showed me that true success is measured in shared love, in lives touched, in legacies of kindness. Emily, when you ran away from that house, I thought I was losing my daughter. But actually, I was freeing her to become who she truly is, a strong, independent, compassionate woman." He wiped away tears. "And Jack, you showed me that being a man has nothing to do with how much money you have, but with the character you show every day." He raised his glass. "I toast to you both, who turned one of the worst experiences of my life into one of the greatest blessings. May you continue to inspire all of us for many more years." Everyone toasted, and Jack and Emily kissed as the crowd applauded. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story. Do you think Jack and Emily made the right decisions? Did you see yourself in any of the characters? Share here in the comments. I'd love to read your honest opinion. And if this story touched your heart, leave your like and especially subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss other moving stories that bring lessons about love, family, and new beginnings. Thank you so much for your company.